Well, folks, again, Steve Christensen's my name. I have been in the ice cream business for nearly 20 years, both operating stores and running our education and training facility. We're based out of St. Louis. We have a facility called Scoop School. That website is scoopschool.com, funnily enough. So you were asking about the warranty on this machine.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 1 year. It's basically one of the best in the industry. You've got 1 year for all of your labor. You've got 3 years parts and actually 5 years on the compressor. So when anything goes wrong with that compressor, 5 years, you can basically have that replaced. So it's a good peace of mind to know that, hey, if anything goes wrong with my machine over a certain period of time, then I've got the coverage to kind of help me with it. Okay, so we're just doing a demonstration of the batch freezer here. Batch freezer is a pretty generic type of machine in that it makes a whole lot of different products. So it's got anything from anything you scoop from a cabinet or a display cabinet. So you can do water ice, you can do sherbet, you can do gelato, you can do premium ice cream. You can do a frozen custard in there, although most people are kind of more comfortable with custard coming out of either a soft serve machine or a modified continuous freezer. So the batch freezer, again, makes a variety of different products, and that's why it's really effective, particularly if you're making product for your own store, but you can also be making product a lot for other businesses as well. So you can make product for your store and have a pretty robust wholesale system as well. So this particular batch freezer is a 12-quart batch freezer. Most batch freezers are rated by their barrel size. Unfortunately, it's industry lingo, so you can't make 12 quarts of ice cream in a 12-quart batch freezer. So most batch freezers have a minimum and maximum liquid batch size. So for the 12, it's around about 4 quarts to 8 quarts. For the 24, it can be 6 quarts to 12 or 14 quarts. It does depend on what container you're filling and how many places that you have in your display case. So a couple of things about this particular batch freezer. It, like most batch freezers, has your rotate button. So when I turn my rotate on, it'll start the dasher rotating. When you're in this mode, you're basically either sanitizing or cleaning at the end of the day. Your freeze switch, obviously, is when you start that freezing process, when you're freezing the product down. One thing that's unique here in this particular version is that you have your variable speed dasher control and your viscosity control. So most batch freezers run on anywhere between 200 and 230 revs per minute, rotations per minute. And that's set, you can't really change that. So when you're putting a product in the batch freezer, whatever you're pulling out really is all you're going to get so far as variance is concerned. So with the ability to be able to reduce or increase the RPMs of the dasher, you can make a low air or a less fluffy or dense product, or a higher end product or a higher fluffy product. Most people judge the quality of ice cream on its weight, on the air content in the ice cream. So Haagen-Dazs, Ben & Cherry have a lower air content or a lower overrun because they want their product to be perceived as more rich, more decadent, more value or luxurious. Whereas when you go to the grocery store and you want to buy just a gallon of ice cream for the kid's birthday party, and you pick up that bucket and you just about throw it through the roof because it's a lot lighter than what you thought it was going to be, that's pumped full of air. So depending on your need, in your retail or restaurant location, you might want a lower overrun product or a lower air product, so you would wind that RPM down. But you may have some wholesale customers that are selling to Chuck E. Cheese's and other places where quality really isn't such a huge issue. So you can change the overrun or change the beater speed to increase the air. And that's relatively unique so far as batch freezers are concerned. There's also a viscosity control here, which works in tandem with your speed control. So primarily, when the product starts to get to the point where it's thickening up, this viscosity control allows you to extract it out a little bit earlier or a little bit later, depending on your recipe and what your customer wants. So these two controls, new to ElectroFreeze this year, relatively unique in the batch freezer market, and it gives you the variety to make a much more diverse quality of product. So today we're making a 14% ice cream base. Most of your ice cream bases, dairy bases, will come in a 2.5 gallon bag. So we're using product from a dairy called Classic Mix in Neenah, Wisconsin. Anything from Gelato, soft serve, premium ice cream is going to come in a bag like this, refrigerated, and again 2.5 gallons. It has a removable cap, so you don't need to use the whole amount in the batch. So what I've done is I've taken a little bit over a gallon of that mix, put it in my container here, and we're going to use that to actually make our premium ice cream today. We're doing a Ghirardelli. Is it Ghirardelli or Ghirardelli? Anyone? Yeah. It's Ghirardelli. We're doing a chocolate brownie swirl. And just to show you how easy it is making good quality ice cream, I've sanitized this machine, so I've run a sanitized solution through it. I'm going to put a little bit of my base in here. Now, the one thing we do is there's still a little bit of sanitizer here in the barrel. I don't want to run water through it because then basically it's unsanitary again. So we put just a little mix in first. Make sure that our front door is closed, our latch is closed, and I'll rotate that around a little bit and then extract that out, just so I've got to stand in front of it. Just so the sanitizer or the residue of the sanitizer that we had is out. There we go. So I'll put the rest of this mix in. Again, this is a 14% base. Now, the beauty of this particular rotation system is that I can actually mix the flavor in as I go. So I have some Ghirardelli sweet ground chocolate and cocoa. So we'll put some of that in as a background flavor note. Because if I'm doing just a regular chocolate, I would make that chocolate a much more heavy chocolate. If I'm using it as a background note and putting a chocolate swirl in, then I don't want a huge bunch of chocolate in there. I just want a nice background note to the chocolate. So I'll put 2 or 3 of these packets in. Flush it with the last little bit of mix. And then I'll turn my rotate button on. So what that'll do is start rotating the flavor profile into that mix. Rather than having to mix it in a bucket, I can mix it in the batch freezer. Once that's kind of starting to mix in there for 1 minute or so, then I can start the refrigeration process. So before I do that, I'm going to set my RPM on around about 200. Which is a little less than the standard 230, so I'm going to get a much heavier, more deeper ice cream. And I'm going to set my viscosity on about 30. So that viscosity setting, you pull the knob out, you rotate it, you lock it back in to put it into place. Now that my chocolate mix is going in there, I'll turn my refrigeration switch on. This is an air-cooled unit. These units come in single-phase or 3-phase, air-cooled or water-cooled. So again, depending on your needs as to where your ice cream machine's going, whether you have water coming to the unit or water being able to drain out of the unit, depends. So while that's freezing down, just a little bit about the process of premium ice cream. So when this comes out, and again it's going to come out probably in about 8 to 10 minutes, the freezing system is relatively efficient. You can get that product out pretty quickly. The idea is that when you're in production, you want to be able to back another ice cream onto this batch. So you don't want to have to clean between batches because this barrel is going to get down to about 0 degrees. If I have to clean between each batch, then I'm raising that temperature back up to 72, then bringing it back down. So in a production day, what I'm trying to accomplish is I'm going from light to dark in the same flavor profile. So if today was my berry day, I would probably do a couple of vanillas, batch of vanillas, one batch, then another one straight on the back, then another one straight on the back, no cleaning between. Then I may do strawberry, then straight on the back of strawberry I'd do raspberry, then straight on the back of raspberry I'd do a mixed berry. That way I'm keeping the barrel cold and I'm getting through the process of I'm reducing labor, I'm reducing power, I'm reducing time. So it takes a little bit of planning once you've got your flavors in the case, or your business flavors, to kind of figure what my production day is going to look like. Often you'll get the need to make pistachio, chocolate, and mixed berry sorbet in one day, and you can't run any of them on the back because your pistachio is a nut. You can't run anything on the back of a nut for contamination. Chocolate's too dark to run anything on the back on, and mixed berry you're going to have seeds. So again, a bit of forethought into your production is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money so far as energy is concerned. Another thing too is that when this product comes out, being a 14% fat ice cream, it's going to come out almost like the consistency of chocolate mousse. It's going to be very aerated. And so a lot of the higher quality ice cream stores, ice cream businesses will take this product out and they'll put it into a blast freezer. So when I extract out of here, this product's going to be about 18 degrees. It's going to be nice and fluffy. I want to put it in a blast freezer that's set on about -20 to -30. What that does is it basically freezes. A blast freezer is like the convection oven of freezers. It may be set at -20, but there's a fan in there that basically creates that wind chill so that it freezes the core of that bucket down a lot faster. What that does is it preserves the size of the ice crystal and the pocket of air. If I took two buckets out, I took one bucket out, put it in my blast freezer, and I put another bucket out and put it in a regular static freezer, what ends up happening is I take those two buckets out, I put them in my display case, and for the first day or so, they're going to taste very similar. But the blast frozen product is going to last much longer, a better quality product than the product that was just put in the freezer. So after the second, third, fourth day, you'll start to get a very chewy or grainy product out of the non-blast frozen product. So I say this all the time. A lot of people say, do I need a blast freezer? No, you don't need one. Should you have one? Yeah, you probably should. So depending on the size of the container, again, depending on how many flavors you do, this is an under-counter blast freezer. It'll hold between 4 and 6 buckets. It's not a storage freezer. I'm not keeping product in here any longer than probably 6 or 8 hours. I'm basically freezing it down and then rotating into my storage and then rotating into my display case. Questions, comments, concerns? I must be doing a good job. So you'll kind of see as the product freezes down, and please feel free to come and have a look as it's freezing, you're going to start getting that overrun or that expansion, and it'll push back into this chute. So you'll get an idea as to how the product is freezing down. Another thing too is that you're looking at your viscosity level. So I've got my viscosity level set here on, I think, about 25. So I'm at 13, what did I say? 30. So I know I'm at 14 now. I can be preparing the next batch of flavor to go through. So it, in essence, is my timer. As that kind of counts down or counts up towards the 30, I'm now in preparation for the next batch. I mentioned previously also that non-dairy and gluten-free are huge in the batch frozen ice cream market. So having some products that are dairy-free and gluten-free is extremely important. So this unit will do a very good water ice. In the case here yesterday, we made a strawberry and lemon water ice. You can make sorbets in it as well. So a lot of times when we're talking to people about flavor profiling and how many flavors to have in a case, you should have at least 2 out of, let's say, 8 to 10 that are non-dairy. And they're relatively simple to make, they're relatively inexpensive to make. Even the people that can have dairy love a good refreshing water ice. Depending on the weather as well, sometimes people will prefer a non-dairy product just because of its cleanness and its refreshing nature than a heavier ice cream product. So when that gets close, what I'm going to do is do the spatula test. A lot of ice cream makers, even though they've been in the business for years and years and years, and they know that the certain period of time it's going to take to freeze this down, they'll still want to test it to make sure that the product is ready from a viscosity standpoint. So I'll open up the batch, open up the front gate, close it, just make sure that the product's sitting up on the spatula, make sure it just doesn't drop off. And then that'll give me the kind of indication as to when I should extract the product out. It's really up to the individual ice cream maker as to how thick or how thin they want to extract it. I've seen ice cream makers open up this gate and it's almost just like a thick liquid coming out. The downside of doing that is you lose a lot of your structure and the product becomes more of a milk ice than an ice cream. So I prefer to kind of extract it out a little firmer so it has some structure to it. Another thing too is that if we're making a bucket of ice cream, so one of this vanilla that we made yesterday had no particulates, no candies, no ribbons or variegates in it, so you can extract the whole thing out without stopping and starting. Today we're actually going to do a chocolate brownie ripple. So we've got a light base of chocolate in here, and what we're going to do when we extract it out is actually stop it about an inch. We're going to apply our brownie and our ribbon, and then we'll start it up again. So we'll go layer by layer by layer by layer. I'm just watching this thing. It's the carpet that's making it do that, not me. I put this bag on here yesterday and it was kind of like me on an exercise bed. So the idea is that as you layer this ice cream or as you variegate the ice cream, you want every scoop to have some portion of the brownie or the Oreo or whatever you're putting in there in order to kind of have the customers be relatively happy. So I'm going to take this off here. Another thing too is that when you're making ice cream, you want to extract into a cold bucket or a cold container. So this container here has been sitting in our freezer. When the product comes out of here, it'll be sitting at about 18 degrees. If I extract an 18-degree ice cream into a 72-degree bucket, I'll get heat shock on the bottom of that bucket. So that ice cream that hits the bucket at the bottom will melt straight away. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference, but you don't want a differentiator between your consistency through the bucket. So I'll get that ready. I'm at my 30 viscosity here. So I'm going to turn my my compressor off, or the freezing process off, and just open up the front gate here and extract a little of that ice cream out. And you can see it's nice and firm. It doesn't drop off immediately. And for me as the ice cream maker, I know that's the consistency that I want. So I open up my front gate here. And the first portion of it, I want to make sure that I get into the crevice of the case. So I'll take about an inch off and just rotate that into the corner of the bucket. Now I know round buckets don't have corners, but there is an edge there. So I've got, I want to make sure that I don't have any air pockets in there. I take my brownie mix, just put a little bit in there. It's really up to you as to how much brownie you put in. The thing though is that you've got to make sure that you're accounting for food costs. So anything that you put in this ice cream is going into the cost of that ice cream. Then I've got a Ghirardelli Premium Black brand chocolate here. And so I put a ribbon through it. Once I've done that, I hit my extract button again. And then I get my next layer coming out. Around about an inch, shut it off. Now, some ice cream makers will actually get that spatula and rotate it around so that your product's full of it, full of the brownies, full of the things. You lose the distinction of that ribbon when you do that. So I kind of do it layer by layer by layer. So this is a Ghirardelli, actually this is a Street Sweet brownie from the booth just next door here. So you want to make sure that you've got a good layer of that. Again, chocolate syrup. And then we basically do this all the way up this bucket. So 2.5 gallon bucket. Rotate it with one hand, spatula with the other. Someone's cooking something, smells really good. Come on, mate. I'll tell you too that this shelf is adjustable, so if you have a larger container that you want to extract into, or a smaller like a gelato pan, you can move this shelf up and down. So this will be the last one to come out. I'll have a little bit more in here, but we'll get it out and start the tasting process. So I'll close my front gate, take that last portion off, And again, the one that you want on the top, you want to have it visually looking good. So you'll want to make sure that the top of this bucket has a good amount of the particulate, in this case brownie. And then your ribbon. See how sturdy this machine is? So I would then take this out, standing on my mic, I'd take this out and put it into the blast freezer for at least 4 to 6 hours, a 2.5 gallon bucket. And then I'd rotate this into my storage freezer and then into my regular dipping cabinet depending on the need. Some dipping cabinets have storage underneath, which makes it easy. Gelato cases typically don't. So I'll pop this over here and we'll get some spoons out.